She didn't remember when she stopped running and started bleeding, only the burn in her ribs and the taste of metal in her mouth. Rain hit the pavement. Her footsteps echoed off the narrow alley walls as she stumbled forward, clutching her side. Behind her, a man shouted her name. The same man who'd been chasing her for the last 5 blocks. Her vision blurred. Her breath broke. A bottle shattered behind her. Not by accident. A warning. She looked back once, saw the shape of him gaining, and pushed herself forward even though her legs buckled beneath her. She wasn't going to make it. Not this time. And then she ran into him. A tall figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking her path. Unmoving. Too steady for a place like this. She froze. His presence was wrong for an alley, but too controlled to be afraid of. Lorenzo de Vero. The man half the city whispered about. The one name no one said in daylight. His gaze went to her wound first, bright blood running down her fingers. Then his eyes lifted to hers. He didn't speak. He didn't move. But she felt his silence like a hand around her throat. Her heartbeat misfired. She knew him. Not personally, but by the way the city trembled when he walked. And now she was standing in his alley, bleeding all over the concrete. Her pursuer finally entered the mouth of the alley, saw Lorenzo and stopped dead in his tracks. Shoes scraping, breath catching. Lorenzo turned his head slightly, acknowledging the man with the smallest shift of attention. Then, in a quiet voice that didn't need volume, "Leave." One word. Not loud, not angry, but absolute. The man didn't argue. He turned and ran like his life depended on it. Maybe it did. Silence returned, heavy, wet with rain, stretched thin by danger she still felt in her bones. Lorenzo looked at her again. He didn't ask why she was bleeding. He didn't ask who she was. He didn't ask what she had done. He only assessed the wound with eyes that saw too much too quickly. "You're hurt," he said quietly. She swallowed. I'm fine." Her knees wobbled. She wasn't fine. His expression didn't change, but something in the air did. A shift she didn't understand. When her legs buckled again, he moved before she hit the ground. He didn't catch her fully. Just a steadying grip on her arm. Firm, controlled, careful in a way she didn't expect from a man like him. "Walk," he said. Not a command. A decision already made. She tried to pull away. "I can't go with you." "You can't walk alone," he answered. He guided her out of the alley and toward a sleek black car waiting at the curb. His driver stepped out, startled for a second when he saw her condition, then opened the back door without argument. Lorenzo nodded for her to get in. She hesitated. His stare narrowed by a fraction. "In," he said. She obeyed. The leather seat was too soft under her shaking body. Lorenzo sat beside her, closing the door with a quiet thud that sealed the world out. Inside the car, the city noise vanished, replaced by a low hum of the engine and the sharp awareness of him sitting too close and too still. He handed her a folded cloth. "Press this to your ribs." She did. Her fingers trembled. Not from pain. From him. He watched her for a long moment before asking. Who was he? She swallowed hard. Someone I owed. Lorenzo's jaw tightened. A small reaction but clear. He didn't like the sound of that. "You shouldn't have run into my alley," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to." He leaned back slightly, still watching her. "You're bleeding," he repeated, lower this time, almost softer. She pressed the cloth harder. A shudder ran through her. Lorenzo didn't look away. Whatever happened to her? Whoever chased her? He now considered it his business. And the car kept moving through the night, carrying her deeper into a life she didn't know she was about to collide with. The ride to his building felt too quiet, too controlled, too safe to trust. She kept her head down, pressing the blood-soaked cloth to her ribs. But she felt Lorenzo's eyes on her, steady, unreadable, assessing her like a puzzle he didn't remember picking up. When the car stopped, he stepped out first. Rain tapped gently on the pavement as he opened her door. "Come," he said. She followed because she didn't have the strength not to. The building was nothing like she imagined a Mafia CEO would choose. No gold, no marble, no excess. Just steel, silence, and the kind of security that didn't need to brag. Inside the lobby, his presence made the guards straighten instantly. One glance from him, and they pretended not to stare at the wounded girl beside him. The elevator doors slid open with a smooth chime. She stepped inside. He stepped in after her. The doors closed. Silence tightened between them. The elevator's mirrored walls caught her reflection, paler than she thought, blood staining her shirt, breath shaky. Lorenzo stood on the other side of the small space, hands in his pockets, but his posture wasn't relaxed. He was watching her, noticed every wince, every tremble, every swallow of pain she tried to hide. "You're losing blood," he said. "It's nothing. It isn't nothing." The elevator hummed softly. Her throat tightened. He stepped closer, slow, controlled, giving her time to stop him. He didn't. He reached out and adjusted the cloth at her ribs, steadying her hand with his. The contact wasn't intimate, but the care was. "You'll sit once we're inside," he said. She nodded, even though part of her wanted to argue. He was too calm. Sure. Too dangerous in the softness he chose to show. The elevator dinged, breaking the closeness she didn't know how to name. His penthouse door unlocked with a quiet beep. The interior surprised her. Not extravagant, not chaotic, just clean lines, dark walls, the faint smell of leather, and a quiet that felt too intentional. He gestured to the couch. She hesitated. "Sit," he said again, gentler this time. She lowered herself slowly, biting back a groan as heat flared in her side. Lorenzo crouched in front of her, opening a sleek black medical kit he kept under the coffee table. Without looking up, he asked, "Why was he chasing you?" She looked away. "I owed money." His hands stilled for a second. "How much?" "Enough." His jaw tightened again, the same tell she saw in the alley. "You shouldn't have run alone," he said quietly. "I didn't have a choice." He lifted his eyes to hers. "There is always a choice." She breathed out shakily. "Not for people like me." Before he could reply, a phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Lorenzo stood, walked over, and answered with a low, clipped tone. His driver's voice carried faintly through the speaker. "Sir, the same car from earlier just passed by the building. Twice." Her heart dropped. Lorenzo's expression didn't change, but the air around him did. "Lock the lower garage," he said. "No one in or out." "Yes, sir." He ended the call. Silence stretched, thick, heavy, bringing danger back into the room like an unwelcome guest. She swallowed. "They're still looking for me." Lorenzo turned toward her, eyes darker now. "They won't reach you here." The certainty in his voice steadied something inside her. But it also scared her. People like him didn't make promises lightly. Or safely. He returned to her, kneeling again as he lifted the cloth from her ribs. Blood had soaked through. She flinched. "You need stitches," he said. "I can't afford." "I didn't ask if you could." The sharpness in his voice made her look away. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I'm bringing trouble to your door. You think this is my first encounter with trouble. That's not what I—" "You're injured," he said, interrupting her. "And until I say otherwise, you're staying here." It wasn't the words that stunned her. It was how he said them. Not ownership. Not command. Responsibility. She shook her head. "You don't even know me." His eyes held hers. "You ran into my alley," he said. "And I decide what happens in my world." Her breath caught, not from fear, but from the quiet intensity behind his voice. She lowered her gaze. He didn't move. He simply watched her with a patience that felt too heavy for her trembling body. Lorenzo cleaned the wound with steady hands. She winced, fingers curling around the edge of the couch. He noticed. He slowed. His jaw tightened again. His second tell. Does it hurt? He asked softly. Everything hurts. Was. Not silence, pressure. He shifted closer by inches, a controlled proximity that made her chest tighten. Who taught you to bear pain like this? He asked. She swallowed. My brother, she whispered. It was the first time she said his name indirectly. The first thread of truth slipping out. Lorenzo didn't react outwardly, but something in his expression shifted. Like the beginning of a recognition neither of them could see yet. Lorenzo didn't respond right away when she mentioned her brother. He finished taping the gauze over her ribs, movements precise, controlled. Then he stood and crossed to the window, looking down at the street far below. From where she sat, all she could see were his shoulders, tense under the perfect lines of his suit. His phone buzzed again. He answered with that same clipped calm. Talk. A voice came through, low and urgent. Sir, the car's still nearby. Parked across the street this time. Same plates. Lorenzo's jaw flexed. Keep eyes on them. No one gets near the entrance. If they move, you call me first. Yes, sir. He hung up. For a moment he just stood there, staring at the glass. City lights reflected over his features like fractured pieces of a life he'd learned to control by force. She watched him from the couch, heart pounding. They're here because of me, she whispered. He turned his head slightly, enough to meet her eyes over his shoulder. They're here, he said quietly, because someone thinks you're worth chasing. She pushed herself up from the couch, ignoring the flare of pain in her side. I shouldn't stay. If I leave, maybe they'll stop circling this place. Lorenzo faced her fully now. You can barely stand. I'll manage. You won't. His voice was still calm, but there was something under it now. The edge of a man whose patience and fear sounded the same from the outside. She took a shaky breath. You don't understand. People like that, they don't stop. Not just because some powerful man tells them to. They'll keep coming. The more I stay here, the more your people, are at risk. He stepped closer. You think I can't handle risk? That's not what You think I'm doing this for them, he cut in. She froze. His gaze sharpened, locking onto hers. You ran into my alley, he said. Bled in my street. Got hunted near my building. From the moment that man chased you onto my ground, you stopped being just your problem. Her throat tightened. What am I then? She whispered. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he closed the last of the distance between them, still not touching but too close to ignore. He lowered his voice. Someone under my protection, he said. The words landed heavier than any threat. She wanted to argue. To tell him protection was something she didn't deserve. That her brother should have had this, not her. But the room tilted. Pain pulsed through her ribs, sharper now that the adrenaline had faded. Her knees buckled. This time she didn't hit the ground. Lorenzo caught her, one arm steady around her back, the other bracing her weight. For a moment, they were closer than either intended. She felt the solidity of him. Warm, unmoving, a barrier between her and a world that wanted to tear her apart. Easy, he murmured. You're not going anywhere. She tried to push away, but her strength disappeared. You don't have to do this, she whispered. He didn't let go. Sit, he said. Before you fall. He guided her back onto the couch, slower this time, as if he'd accepted something he wasn't ready to name. When he finally stepped back, his hands lingered at her arms for half a second longer than strictly necessary. Then he pulled away. Without looking at her, he said, "Wait here." He disappeared down a short hallway. For a few seconds, all she heard was the faint hum of the penthouse and her own uneven breathing. She looked around. No photos. No family pictures. No warm details. Just a life pared down to sharp edges and clean exits. A man who didn't leave anything lying around that could be used against him. A door opened down the hall. Lorenzo stepped into a darker room. His office. Single desk. Locked drawers. A small safe embedded into the floor near the corner. He keyed in a code. Metal click. The lid opened with a soft hiss. Inside lay a stack of slim folders. Faces. Lives he'd measured, calculated, judged. He pulled one out, not at random. A file marked with a red tab along the spine. He stared at it for a long moment before heading back to her. He set the folder on the glass coffee table in front of her. She frowned. What is that? He didn't sit. He stood over the table, hands at his sides, gaze on her instead of the file. Your brother, he said, wasn't just in the wrong place at the wrong time, was he? Her breath stalled. How do you? He opened the folder. Her lungs forgot how to work. A grainy photo lay on top of a stack of pages. A man with a crooked smile, familiar eyes, and a chipped necklace around his neck. Her brother. Alive. Laughing. Not in the way she last saw him. Cold in a coffin, face too still, but captured mid-moment, like the world hadn't finished with him yet. Her hand moved without her permission, fingers hovering over the image. Where did you get this? She whispered. Lorenzo watched her carefully, every line of his body held in controlled tension. I run a syndicate, he said. Men like the one chasing you tonight. I've seen his type before. I keep records of anyone who crosses certain lines. Debt collectors, enforcers, witnesses. Her eyes flicked up to his. Witnesses. He tapped the photo gently. Your brother was following one of mine. The world narrowed. That's not true, she managed. He just got caught in something he didn't deserve. Lorenzo turned another page. This one wasn't a police report. No official stamp. No header. Internal notes. Private. His world on paper. He pointed to a line of writing. Witness believed his brother's death was connected to the Devero syndicate, he read. Began asking questions. Started following a rogue collector. Her pulse stopped. Whoa. Collector. The words hit like a knife. My debt collector, she whispered. The one tonight. The one who started all this. Not just him, Lorenzo cut in softly. The man your brother followed is the same type who would chase you into my alley. Someone who uses debt as leverage. Someone who doesn't know when to stop. She stared at the pages. Her brother hadn't just wandered into danger. He'd gone looking for it for her. To protect her from a world she hadn't understood. Her vision blurred. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought he just, wrong place, wrong time. That if I hadn't taken that loan, if I hadn't been so stupid, he'd still be alive. Her fingers curled tightly around the edge of the file. This is my fault. Lorenzo didn't move at first. Then he came around the table, lowering himself to a crouch in front of her again. This time not as a man treating a wound, but as someone choosing to be on her level. Your brother made a choice, he said quietly. He followed a man who should have been stopped a long time ago. Her shoulders shook. He followed him because of me. No, Lorenzo said. He followed him because he wanted to protect you. That's not your crime. That's his love. Her breath fractured. Tears she'd been holding back since the night he died finally slipped free. I took the loan, she said. I made the mistake. If I hadn't, he wouldn't have. His voice hardened, not with anger but with certainty. His death, Lorenzo said, is the fault of the man who decided he should die. No one else. She choked on a broken sound. He didn't touch her. But he didn't look away from her grief either. Behind his eyes, something dark and old stirred, a memory he didn't allow to surface fully. Because when he'd opened that file in his office, before bringing it out, he'd seen more than her brother's picture. He'd seen the attached incident record, the name of the operation, the final signature authorizing the job. His own. He had killed men before, ordered deaths, ended problems. But this was the first time one of those choices sat crying in front of him, wearing the face of someone he was trying against his own rules to protect. And Elena didn't know. Not yet. The crying slowed. Not because the pain faded, but because she had nothing left to give it. Elena wiped her face with trembling fingers, ashamed of how exposed she felt. Exposed in front of him. She expected him to back away, to give her space, to return to that coldness he wore like armor. But he didn't move. When he finally rose to his feet, his voice wasn't distant. It was controlled, yes, but quieter. Grounded. "You're staying here tonight," he said. She shook her head immediately. "No, I can't. I already told you, I'm bringing danger to your door. I should go before." "Before what?" he asked. "Before the men hunting you find you alone. Before they finish what they started." His tone sharpened, not cruel but honest. "You're not walking out that door." She stared at him, breath shallow. "Why?" she whispered. His jaw tightened. Because he had killed her brother. Because he didn't know how to undo that. Because protecting her felt like the only thing he had left to offer. He didn't say any of that. Instead, "Because you won't survive the night without help," he said. And that was a truth he wouldn't let her argue. Elena looked down at the folder again, at the photo of her brother smiling like the world hadn't ended for him yet. "He shouldn't have followed that man," she whispered. "He shouldn't have tried to fix my mistake. I told him I could handle it and I couldn't. He took the risk for me and died for it." Her shoulders curled inward. "This is all my fault." Lorenzo's hands curled into fists at his sides, the first uncontrolled gesture she'd seen from him. He took a step toward her. "No," he said sharply. "You don't get to carry that guilt." She laughed, a small broken sound. "Who else should carry it?" He was breathing harder now, but his voice stayed low, almost dangerous in its restraint. "The man who killed him," Lorenzo said. "That is who bears the blame." She lifted her eyes to his. "How can you be so sure?" He hesitated. Just one moment. Just enough for her to notice the crack. Then he said, "Because I've lived long enough to know how responsibility works." Meaning, he said quietly, "that men like your brother don't die because of the people they love. They die because someone made a choice to take them." Her breath caught. A simple truth spoken gently. But it reached her like something sharp and painful and deeply human. "Then why does it still feel like my fault?" she whispered. "Because you cared," he said. "And grief always punishes the ones who loved most." The room fell into a heavy stillness. Lorenzo finally sat beside her, not touching her, not crowding her, but close enough to change the air. "You asked why I'm doing this," he said. She looked at him slowly. He held her gaze. "My world has one rule," he said softly. "No one dies unless they choose the war." Her pulse skipped. "What does that mean?" "It means your brother was killed by a man who broke my code." Her breath trembled. "He didn't choose a war," she whispered. "No," Lorenzo agreed. "He didn't." The weight of those words settled between them. Heavy, sharp, carrying unspoken meanings she wasn't ready to name. His voice dropped lower, almost a promise. "And whoever broke that rule will answer for it." Her chest tightened. Not in fear. In something dangerously close to relief. The way he said it, calm, steady, final, made her believe him. Made her want to believe him. She didn't know that the man who broke his rule was him. And he didn't know, not yet, that the woman he was vowing to protect was the sister of the man he'd doomed. Before either of them could speak again, a sharp buzz vibrated the air. Lorenzo's driver was at the door. He answered it, and the man stepped halfway inside. Breathing hard, voice low. "Sir, we have a problem." Lorenzo's posture tightened instantly. "What kind of problem?" "The car outside didn't just circle. 2 men got out. They're checking the building entrances. They look armed." A chill slid down Elena's spine. The driver continued. "And, sir, they asked the guard if anyone injured came through." Lorenzo's eyes darkened. Every trace of softness vanished, replaced by steel. "Get everyone inside," he said. "No one leaves. Lock down the elevators." I want the lower floors sealed. Yes, sir. The driver hurried away. Elena clutched the edge of the couch. They're here for me, she whispered. Lorenzo turned back to her. Calm, focused, emotion locked behind a controlled exterior. No, he said. They're here for whoever your brother died chasing. She trembled. He stepped closer. Get up, he said gently. You're moving to the inner suite. What if they get inside, she whispered. Lorenzo's expression didn't waver. Not once. If they reach this floor, he said, they won't leave alive. His voice didn't rise. His posture didn't shift. He meant it. Completely. The suite was quiet, too quiet. A thick, insulated kind of silence that swallowed the world outside. Elena stood near the doorway, breath shaky, fingers still curled around the chipped necklace she carried like a lifeline. Lorenzo entered after securing the outer rooms, the faint click of the door sliding shut behind him grounding the moment. He didn't approach her right away. Didn't touch her. Didn't speak. He simply walked to the small table, poured a glass of water and set it near her hand. Drink when you're ready, he said softly. Something broke in her at how simple the gesture was. How gentle. How unearned she felt it was. She sank onto the edge of the bed, eyes unfocused. Lorenzo didn't sit beside her. He sat near her, close enough to be present, far enough to let her breathe. You're safe now, he said. Her breath trembled. She didn't believe it fully. But for the first time she wanted to. The room was dim, lit only by the warm glow of a wall lamp. She stared at the necklace in her palm, the chipped charm her brother had worn every day. The only piece she had left of him. He died trying to protect me, she whispered. And I spent so long thinking I didn't deserve that. That if I stopped grieving, I was letting him go. Lorenzo's eyes softened. Not visibly, but the air around him changed. You loved him, he said. That doesn't disappear because you choose to keep living. She swallowed. I don't know how to do that. You're already doing it. Her eyes lifted to his. He didn't look away. Didn't retreat into silence. You survived tonight, he continued. You faced the truth. And you didn't break. You're stronger than you think. She let out a breath she had held for years. Then she said the quietest, bravest words she'd spoken since the night he died. I'm ready to stop running. Lorenzo nodded once. Slow, controlled, but unmistakably certain. You won't run alone, he said. She looked down at the necklace again, thumb brushing over the chipped metal. Lorenzo reached out slowly, giving her time to refuse. He didn't. He took the necklace from her hand, not to claim it, but to inspect the damaged link. The break was small, reparable, but instead of fixing it completely, he reinforced the chain while leaving the chip intact. He placed it back in her hand. It broke because it was worn, he said quietly. Not because it failed. Her breath caught. A simple line, but it felt like a truth she wasn't ready for until now. Her brother's memory wasn't broken. It was lived, carried, real. She fastened the necklace around her throat with steadying fingers. Lorenzo watched her, not with possession, not with pity, but with something deeper, something chosen. Outside, faint sirens cut through the distant city air. Danger still existed. Threat still waited. But in the quiet dimness of the inner suite, for the first time since her brother's death, her heart didn't race out of fear. Slowed, settled, found space to breathe. She looked at Lorenzo, the man who terrified half the city, who carried secrets she hadn't uncovered, who stood between her and a world that wanted her gone. And she felt something unfamiliar, something steady, beginning. He held her gaze, voice low, steady, final. Whoever comes next, they will face me first. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. Instead, she whispered the truth she finally believed. I'm not alone anymore. A soft silence followed, not heavy, not sharp, but full. A quiet ending. And the place where something new began.